Time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day. So join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Very busy Tuesday night of Sports Talk across the state of South Carolina. Busy from a baseball standpoint. A lot of baseball games tonight. Clemson is in North Augusta to play Georgia, matchup of top 10 teams. Will Pelagic is there at the new ballpark in North Augusta. We'll join him in just a moment. USC is down in Charleston to take on the Citadel, second time in 3 weeks. These two teams will be meeting in baseball. Back on March 20th, the Citadel beat the Gamecocks in Columbia 4-3. That was a game that was actually supposed to be played in Charleston because of the weather. They moved that game up to Columbia and switched the game that was supposed to be in Columbia on the 20th. They moved that to Charleston for tonight. Hopefully everybody understands that. I saw some media reports that had the game being played tonight in Columbia. Obviously, they didn't catch that the games had been switched because of the weather. Phil Kornbluth and Professor Tom Hayes here in our studios in downtown Columbia, along with Brian Leonard. Love to hear from you tonight and take your phone calls as we talk baseball. We talk some spring football with Clemson, about to wrap up its spring football. One more practice on Wednesday, and then the orange and white spring game on Saturday. And I think a lot of Tiger fans will be very interested to see how the quarterbacks look. They know what to expect from Kelly Bryant. Really, the other three are a bit of an unknown. Seen Hunter Johnson just a little bit, but not enough to have a great feel. So that will be something to look forward to on Saturday at the spring game. Outside of that, probably not a whole lot more to expect out of the Clemson spring game. We've got the RBC Heritage starting to crank up with activities down at Harbortown, and the golfers are arriving and starting to get in some practice rounds and meet with the media and stuff like that. So we'll be keeping a close watch on things down at the Heritage. The rest of this week, we'll be heading to Hilton Head on a Thursday to cover Harbortown for us on Thursday and Friday. And we've got the NBA playoffs about to crank up. I know that's always a big part of the professor's life when the NBA playoffs roll around. Even though your favored Atlanta Hawks are they're not going to be in the playoffs, are they?
No, we're tanking.
Yeah, right. And you tanked last year, right?
Yeah,
you tanked the year before, right?
That was the beginning.
How many years can you tank?
As many as Boston did. 3 or 4.
We never tank.
Yeah, you did.
We were just bad.
You hired a 34-year-old guy.
We were just bad.
To groom your but that's the only thing you can do. As I said before, in the NBA, you can languish in the playoffs for 15, 20 years and be just good. You have to be very bad or very good to have success in the playoffs in the long run.
All right, let's head over to North Augusta, the brand new ballpark, hard against the river, down in North Augusta, as the Clemson Tigers and the Georgia Bulldogs are going to be playing baseball here in just a little bit. First pitch at 6:30. Will Pelagic is there. Tell us about the new ballpark. Give us the name, what it looks like, everything that folks who aren't going to be there would want to know.
And a pleasant good evening to you and yours, and welcome to SRP Park in North Augusta, literally as far south into South Carolina as you could get before heading to Georgia. I can see Georgia from my seat, like Sarah Palin could see Russia from her house. We are right along the Savannah River, right beyond the 13th Street Bridge, if you know the Augusta area very well, or at least the North Augusta area very well. It overlooks kind of the southwest and southeast sky. It's a beautiful night for baseball. Temperature is in the middle 60s. A lot of orange and regalia in the stands. A lot of Clemson fans. This is a home game for them. One that Monty Lee said to us yesterday that they forewent because of the fact that they wanted their team to be able to play inside the home ballpark, or at least inside the new home ballpark of the Augusta Green Jackets, who will open up their season coming up here on Thursday night. Their brand new ballpark. They had a dry run last night with the high school game, and this is really their first real game with a huge, sizable crowd. They said that it's sold out, so they're expecting capacity crowd. Lots of great open view areas here for people here. If you ever want to come down here and see a game, brand new concession stands. I can smell the burgers and hot dogs, and also I can smell the beer, Corn, as anybody can when you come to a ball game.
Well, you certainly have a nose and a gut for the beer. I'm not surprised about that. So,
not nice.
What about the dimensions of the park? Give us some of the specifics, some of the things that will make the baseball bounce funny around that place.
So there are high walls around the field. It's not a symmetrical outfield wall. It's 330 down the left field line, and it's about that to right field. There's a pretty deep power alley in right center field, but out to center field, it's only about 395. See, they modeled the dimensions very similarly to Augusta's parent park with the San Francisco Giants, AT&T Park in San Francisco. And the real distinguishing feature of this ballpark is the right field terrace, which you're naming the Tax Slayer Terrace. And right beyond that right field wall is the Savannah River. So it's modeled very much like McCovey Cove. So it's an inviting target for right-handed power hitters, and Clemson certainly has one that might surely try to take aim for that this evening.
All right, what about the weather conditions, the wind? Which way is the wind blowing? Is the wind going to be more to the side of the hitters or more to the side of the pitchers?
The flag stands limp, Corn. There's no wind to speak of right now. Again, sunshine. There are no clouds. It's a perfect night for baseball. Again, temperature is going to be in the middle 60s. I would say nothing more than a little windbreaker or hoodie for you if you are sensitive to the cold tonight. But other than that, we should have a fantastic night for baseball. No precip in the forecast. And again, this is going to be, unlike what we saw last week, we saw a real late arriving crowd and really not much buzz. There's a lot more buzz in the ballpark here for this matchup. I think a lot of that has to do with the two teams that are being played and just the fact that this is a pretty much uncharted territory for both of these teams because they've played neutral site games in Anderson and Gainesville, Georgia, and Elberton, Georgia, and Thompson, Georgia, but never in this ballpark. So a brand new novel idea brought about by the folks here with the Green Jackets. And again, a lot of fans clad in orange to try and see their Tigers.
Well, it had to be an adventure for the grounds crew and the people who take care of the turf with these up and down weird temperatures this spring. How does the turf look in the outfield and the infield?
It looks brand freaking new, Pro. I mean, I swear, I have no idea how they grow grass with the way that the winter we had, and the winter I know that we had was a little bit more cool than folks in the Carolinas and at least in Georgia also expected. But it looks like it's fresh sod. Looks like the dirt has a real true bounce to it. You really don't see any real dead spots. I mean, it is in essence a brand new ballpark in every sense of the word. The only thing that you could say that there are some warts, if you will, with this facility is the fact that a lot of the surrounding area doesn't have a lot completed. There's a building that's beyond the left field wall that they're going to use for some retail and also some apartments and office buildings that is still in the process of being completed. So that's not done. A lot of the surrounding roads around here, there's some construction. So if folks are actually headed down here, be sure to at least try and I would say leave some time, but even though this first pitch is around 50 minutes from now, you probably don't have much time to leave. But the fact of the matter being that if you are going to come down to a game here at Augusta, leave some additional time because there is a little bit of the infrastructure that's still yet to be figured out for some of the stuff around here, which is understandable as they open a new ballpark.
All right, what's your pitching matchups?
Pitching matchup for Clemson, we heard yesterday from Monty Lee that he's going to go with Spencer Strider, 3-0 record, making his third start. He started last week in the victory over Coastal Carolina. And Tony Losey, who'll make his fifth start. He's 6-0 in 13 appearances, 3.07 ERA for Georgia. And both these opposing pitchers have very, very low batting averages against. So not your typical midweek matchup. These two expect to really sling it, Corn.
Okay, we'll get back with you in just a couple of minutes. So stay tuned, and USC and the Citadel going to be getting underway at 7 o'clock at Joe Riley Park down in Charleston, the Pro Park down there, which itself is a beautiful ballpark. USC shaking things up tonight with its starting pitcher. They're going to go with the freshman who's been out of the bullpen to this point in the season, Carmen Modzinski, who is 0-3, but this will be his first start, 3.38 ERA, and we'll be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
We are back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We welcome all of you listening to us on our stations around the state of South Carolina. Thank you to the stations, and thank you to the listeners around the states. Good to have you with us. We welcome in those of you watching our Periscope live on Twitter. Feel free to hit us up with a comment or a question That way, should you lose us over the airwaves, you can't get us on Twitter, go to the TuneIn app, pull up one of our affiliates, our Columbia station. The Point Radio does not preempt us. You can always get us there. Just do a search for The Point Radio in Columbia. But if you find us on one of our other stations there as well, that's cool too, but The Point doesn't preempt us. That's why I mentioned that. 800-956-7266, the number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. Coming up, we'll have more from Clemson football. We'll hear from Tavian Feaster and Kevon Wallace. Looking ahead to the end of spring practice for them with their spring game coming up on Saturday. Also, we'll have recruiting for you coming up a little bit later on and some information on a 2020 offensive lineman who appears to be Gamecock bound, not right away, but sometime next month. It looks pretty good for South Carolina. Not definite, but pretty good. We'll tell you about that coming up in recruiting in a few minutes. Tomorrow night here on Sports Talk at 7:05, our first chance to interview the new head basketball coach at Upstate, Dave Dickerson, will be with us as he is in the state working, making his rounds. We're starting to recruit for the Spartans and build that program. I think he's going to do a heck of a job at that mid-major. I think he's proven himself. He was a good coach at Tulane when he was there. I don't recall the record, but I think he was a good coach at Tulane. I know he's been an excellent assistant coach. I know at one time Frank Martin wanted to hire him, maybe a couple of times, just didn't happen. I think he's going to do a really good job at Upstate.
Yeah, associate head coach at Maryland when they won the national title, and then moved over to Ohio State under Thad Matta later on after Tulane. Katrina threw a monkey wrench in his debut. Couldn't recover from it. It's kind of ironic. He's from South Carolina, got the Tulane job, and then Mike Dunleavy, who played at the University of South Carolina, is now head coach at Tulane.
I don't think they had that new arena when he was there.
No,
did they?
No, they did not.
Yeah. All right, let me mention a couple of things here. USC baseball down at the Citadel tonight, and Madison Stokes is back in the lineup for USC as the DH. He will bat fourth. Rowe is at second base, getting another start there. He will lead off. Tolbert is at short. Bright is at third. Stokes is DHing. Williams is at first. Hogan is in right field. Olson is in center field. And Cullen is behind the plate. Mozinski is starting tonight for South Carolina. Sabo is going to pitch tonight for the Citadel as the Citadel goes for the season sweep of the Gamecocks, having defeated USC back on March 20th in Columbia 4-3. You might recall getting a home run in the top of the ninth inning and some sterling relief pitching to win that one. Of course, both of these teams struggling a bit right now. USC had won 4 in a row. They've now lost 3 out of 4. The Citadel has lost 7 in a row, swept over the weekend by Sanford, 12-19 overall, and only 9-15 at home to this point. We mentioned Jonathan Sabo pitching tonight. This will be his 7th appearance, his first start. He's got 3 saves. He is not allowed an earned run in 7 innings. He's only allowed 2 hits and 2 runs. Neither was earned. Struck out 5 and walked 1. So, a guy who must have some good stuff, just hasn't had a whole lot of work. He is typically a position player for them. I want to say he's an infielder. He's batting .301, and he's got 2 home runs and 13 RBIs, but they're going to run him out on the mound tonight down there in Charleston. 7 o'clock is the first pitch there. Will, 6:30 is supposed to be your first pitch, but doesn't look like that's going to happen, huh?
Yeah, they're getting their infield ready. It's probably a little bit later than they wanted to get it going, but they're streamlining the process. They've got the lines chalked now, and about 5 minutes before the scheduled first pitch, it's probably going to be closer to 6:35. But as far as the notables for the Clemson lineup, Keir Meredith, who we had mentioned during yesterday's show, is making his return, or at least his entrance into the Clemson lineup for the first time in the Notre Dame series. He'll be leading off for Clemson. Logan Davidson and Seth Beer behind him. Chris Williams at first base hitting 4th. The DH Robert Jolly hits 5th. In left field is Drew Wharton. The third baseman Patrick Cromwell hits 7th. Kyle Wilkie off his first career home run. The catcher hitting 8th, Jordan Green, highest on-base percentage of the team. It's in that basically second leadoff spot in the number 9 position. Meredith, Davidson, Beer, Williams, Jolly, Wharton, Cromwell, Wilkie, and Green. Spencer Strider on the mound for Clemson. Tony Losi on the mound for Georgia. And the crowd, again, as we mentioned, still very much filing in. They're expecting a sellout here, and already jammed concession lines already, Corn. So they're very much anticipating this one here.
All right. Now here's the big story of the afternoon, just coming out from the U.S. Attorney's Office. The headline out of the Southern District of New York: U.S. Attorney's Office announces additional charges against athletic apparel company executive and others for allegedly defrauding 4 NCAA D1 universities. The attorney for the United States, Robert S. Kazami, announced the filing of a superseding indictment against defendants James Gatto, Merle Code, Christian Dawkins. The superseding indictment expands the scope of the charged wire fraud conspiracy to include alleged payments to the families of 6 student athletes in connections with those players' decisions to attend 4 different D1 universities: Louisville, Miami, Kansas, and NC State, all of which were sponsored by the same major athletic apparel company. The investigation remains ongoing. The FBI strongly encourages anyone with info they believe to be relevant to contact the FBI. They have a special hotline, 212-384-2135, if you have any information. So there you go. Additional charges being announced here. Merle Code, of course, the former Clemson basketball player, a Greenville native, was originally implicated in this, as were Gatto and Dawkins. And so I'm not exactly sure. Reading this at first blush and not having a chance to read background and try to get a greater feel for what all this means. What's your initial take? You got an initial take on this?
Not really, but it is Adidas, is it not? I mean, when I think about the team,
yes, I think so.
Those are the teams that wear Adidas. And it's interesting how it's Adidas all of a sudden. You almost think you want to go after the swoosh, but apparently they cover their tracks.
Will, you have any initial take on this information? Have you seen that previously?
I saw this about a half hour in advance of you, and in my initial read of this, it just again continues to broaden the scope and broaden where the FBI is trying to go, because of the fact that they're trying to continue just this, I don't want to call it witch hunt, but the one thing that they're finding out is that this is, again, kind of the tip of the iceberg, like we've been talking about when this story first came out in late September. And, I think that there's more still to be learned. There's probably more schools that are out there that are being investigated. But at least from this perspective, we now at least have a general idea of where this is going, and kind of narrow it down with those 3 individuals who are the same individuals who were mentioned originally by the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Well, here's something that we have to be concerned about, I guess, here locally, and the fact that, as part of the story says, expands the scope, charged wire fraud conspiracy, payments to families of 6 players, Louisville. Okay, does this go back and further involve the situation with Brian Bowen? Of course, he was brought up initially, Louisville, family getting money, $100,000. Now he's at South Carolina. Does that further expand that? Be right back. All right, we're back at Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornblut, Professor Tom Hayes here in downtown Columbia. Will Pelagic is in North Augusta, where Clemson and Georgia will be getting underway shortly in their matchup of top 10 teams. The Tigers at number 3 and the Bulldogs as high as number 10. Here's a little bit more on this FBI story. Tom Martin, who is a television reporter in Kansas City, he writes, in following up on it from a Kansas angle, he says Jim Gatto allegedly paid an AAU coach $50,000. That coach then falsely described it as an Adidas invoice and a tournament fee. He described it on an Adidas invoice as a tournament fee. He turned around and delivered Josh Jackson's mother approximately $30,000 of that money in a New York City hotel room, and later Jackson's mother received $20,000 in a Vegas hotel. The indictment references, he continues, a surprise commitment decision on August 30th. Apparently, according to Tom Martin, this is Silvio De Souza, who was headed to somewhere else and then committed to Kansas. The indictment says a college coach asked for $20,000 to pay the player to override a previous deal the player had made. Martin goes on to write, the indictment specifically mentions how Jackson's mother received payments. It does not mention the $20,000 payment ever reaching the second player named, only that it was requested. So this sounds like it could get pretty deep here, Will, for Kansas and Pro. It sounds like this FBI probe is not going away. They're going to continue to dig deeper into these programs and into these AAU situations, and into these shoe situations. Yeah,
still trying to figure out how they cleared up Auburn's situation very quickly. In that, they said Bruce Pearl wasn't cooperating, and of course that was when Chuck Person was in it. But Purifoy has to, I think, 30% of the games next year he can't play, and then I think Wiley was cleared altogether, so he can play the whole season. So why did Auburn get cleared up so quickly and everybody else still in the lurch?
NCAA justice moves in a very strange way. Some cases get resolved in a heartbeat. In other cases, as we know, North Carolina, for example, drags on forever. So, Will, I don't know if you know this reporter out in Kansas City from your time out that way, but he seems to have some pretty good information related to the Jayhawks. Yeah,
well, it's weird with one of the stories I read in conjunction with this. I don't know if it was necessarily involving Kansas, but the one thing, at least that the indictment says, is that the payments were basically designed to be disguised from the coaches, or at least the payments from the shoe companies to the families basically concealed the coaches from the particular squads. So at least it allowed for the veil of plausible deniability. Of course, though, why in the world would these teams, not know about this, in my opinion? I think that them trying to disguise their plausible deniability is a futile effort. And again, like you said, this only sounds like it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. And, anytime now, Pro, that we see a big-time recruit change his mind on a commitment, and that seldom happens in basketball compared to football. Usually when a basketball guy makes a commitment, he's pretty much done. The recruiting backs off. In some regards, it's a basketball coaches kind of take it to a higher level than football coaches. When somebody commits somewhere, they tend to back off. They do back off. For example, Zion Williamson committing to Duke, okay? Have you heard of anybody trying to go in and turn him? Have you heard of any further recruiting by, say, North Carolina or Kansas or Clemson or South Carolina? No, they shut it down. They move on. Football, like you like to say, all that does is throw up the flag of here I am, come and get me. And, of course, the player has something to do with that in football, too, because many of them commit and then continue to take visits and continue to talk to coaches, and they keep everything open. For basketball players, for the most part, decide to shut it down and they move on. So when there's a surprise change of heart, like in the case here, in the future, we're all going to wonder, okay, how did this happen? Who paid off who to get this to happen? What AAU situation was involved? It's a scary situation for college basketball.
And it's all about selling product. Kansas is one of those jewels. And you see other teams from the major conferences. I want this guy wearing my shoes at Duke. I want, that sort of thing. And it's scary. And it's got to be more than Adidas doing it. You got to have a feeling that if you're still in the business, and I think probably that's one of the reasons why Converse said, well, the heck with it. We can't deal with this under the table stuff. And you see one of the tremendous shoe companies that once had Magic Johnson and Bird just disappeared all of a sudden, other than just to the casual dresser now, as far as the shoe business is concerned, because it's gotten a little shaky.
Well, this new information, of course, now brings Kansas into the probe, its staff, and it brings NC State's staff into the probe. I don't think they were, as staffs, as schools, were named previously in the initial announcement by the FBI. So now it brings these two big-time programs. Now with NC State, you wonder, again, I haven't had a chance to look deeply into the information. Is this the new staff at NC State they're referring to, or the previous staff? Kevin Keats has only been at NC State, of course, 1 year. So are they referring to him or the staff prior? I'd have to look at more details as this thing sort of trickles out here.
Keats has a little bit of that Louisville rub off on him because he used to be an assistant.
Well, this is true.
At Louisville.
This is true. So this is, the thought that this thing might be going away and the damage had been done, the main wave of accusations and allegations and all that, apparently not. Apparently the FBI is still out there digging and turning up more information that it feels is credible.
And if you think if the FBI, I don't think they look as the NCAA does as schools as a sacred cow, but there's a big one sitting right there.
Oh, I think they want to bust chops. I mean, I think they want to get. I think their goal is to bring down the biggest, shiniest rock on the top of the mountain that it can get to. And if that means Kansas, if that means Duke, they would love nothing more, I'm sure, to find some dirt on Krzyzewski, just for the standpoint of making the FBI looking like the big dog that it is. I mean, it's the FBI.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care what business you in. If the FBI comes snooping around for whatever reason, you should be nervous.
Well, years ago, Wilt Chamberlain he was asked, you get to Philadelphia, Kansas. Well, you got some money in Kansas. Yeah, that's what Wilt used to say.
Well, I don't know about it back then, but there's something smelly going on there now, that's for sure. All right, couple of other notes to pass along to you here. And I tell you what, let's go to Glenn. He's been holding for several minutes. He deserves a shot on the air here on Sports Talk. Glenn, thanks for waiting. What's on your mind, man?
I was looking at Spurrier yesterday. I heard that he's going to move into some kind of new football league like the USFL. And I like to follow him if they can. I heard Fox is going to be airing these games. And
I think it's CBS, isn't it? Isn't it CBS has a contract?
I think you're right.
Yeah. And another thing, how about this new league, basketball-wise? It's going to be a half-court league. I forget what they call it. I think it's like the third league, where they're going to use pros that's kind of like up in age and see what kind of tank or gas in the tank they have left.
Yeah.
Y'all heard about that one?
Well, I've seen some of the games they play, and I'm not enamored. It's just you almost can go down to the Y and see a better game.
All right, thank you very much. I was reading something here about Citadel baseball, so I lost you there, Glenn. Jeff Hartzell, covering the game for the Post and Courier, says that Sabo will start tonight and likely pitch a couple of innings, then move to third base, as Tony Scholes trying to kind of shake things up a bit with his team as Sabo makes his first career start. Be right back.
Yeah, it's been a long year for us. Felt like we had just came off the field in New Orleans, so I was happy to get back at it, but I'm glad it's winding down.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome back to SRP Park in North Augusta, South Carolina. Will Pelagic here with you as we continue Sports Talk's coverage of Clemson and Georgia, the first of two Tuesday night ball games between these two. These two will play tonight here in North Augusta and then again up at Foley Field in Athens. Clemson foregoing a home game in order to play this neutral site contest here in North Augusta, the Pro Park of the Augusta Green Jackets. This is the first real event that they will have before the Green Jackets open up their ballpark for real on Thursday. Opening inning here so far for Clemson, Spencer Strider has allowed a leadoff walk, but he was erased on a strike him out, throw him out double play. Aaron Shunk has dunked one in the left field for a 2-out base hit, putting one on and one out. Michael Curry will bat now for Georgia. Still no score. Opening inning, Georgia and Clemson. We'll keep you updated as we go throughout the evening here in North Augusta, Corn.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. USC and the Citadel getting underway shortly down in Charleston. Keep you up to date on that as well as other baseball around the SEC, ACC, and the state. And, of course, tonight, it's the first of three between the Yankees and those dirt-eating, yellow-belly, sap-sucking,
8-1
body odor emitting Red Sox. They are 8-1, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
But they lost one of their key players.
Doesn't seem to hurt them.
I know. They seem to find a way, but you know what? Injuries have a way of taking their toll. Not that I'm wishing that on anybody. I want to beat them healthy. I got a feeling Giancarlo is going to break out of things tonight. I think he needed to get out of New York for a little while and just relax and get back to doing his thing.
Just as long as he does not get mesmerized by the green monster.
I think he can handle it. He's a big boy. Recruiting coming up here in just a couple of moments. Clemson practiced yesterday, off today. We'll practice again tomorrow. Then have the spring game on Saturday, 2:30 at Death Valley. Tavian Feaster, is he going to be the big-time back we've been expecting since he signed with Clemson out of Spartan High, or is he going to be backing up Etienne? Yes, I'm trying to think, get my running backs right here. Is he going to be backing up the young guy out of Louisiana, Etienne, who came on and did such a good job? Adam Choice, a little banged up in practice yesterday, so I don't know how much we'll see of him, if any, in the spring game. So Feaster, spring game, as much as they decide to run the football, carry that into the fall practice, and maybe step up his game and become more of the lead dog there in the Tiger running back game. He spoke with the media yesterday. It's been a tough spring for everybody, hard spring coming off a long season, and he's kind of at that point where he's ready to get it over with.
Yeah, it's been a long year for us. Felt like we had just came off the field in New Orleans, so I was happy to get back at it, but I'm glad it's winding down.
What are you hoping to see out of the offense out there Saturday?
Just players compete. We're gonna be split up into a different team, so just embrace your role and don't take it for granted.
Talk about the relationship you and Davion have built.
Octavian. That's true. Nah, you good. He's a cool dude, funny guy. I enjoy being around him. He brings a laughter to the room. He's a great back. He runs it hard. Happy to have guys in the room like him.
Behind you, you got Adam Joyce been here for a while. It's senior year. Talk about what Adam brings to the table and helps you guys out.
Adam helps us, of course, with depth, but he's another guy that runs the ball hard. Passionate about what he does out here on the field, and he just brings that leadership to the room. Great quality for us, and he's a great leader for us in the room.
Have you seen the results on the field?
Oh, yes, sir, definitely. Endurance, stamina, able to, a little bit faster, quicker than last year. Feel good. Yes, sir.
Talk about what the diet's like.
The diet?
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's been rough, cutting back. I never really drank soda anyway, so basically it's cutting back on, Gatorade, a lot of fast food, stuff like that. I've been transitioning well, though.
Going back to talking about goals, did you have spring goals set out? And I mean,
spring goals was basically to get better. Focus on the fundamentals, regroup, and just to get better. Better in pass protection. Better with footwork. Better with the small things.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, with the other guys in the room with you out in the field, obviously. I mean, how much are you guys pushing each other, making each other better?
Oh, day in and day out, it's a fight. All those guys in the room, I think, gotten better this spring, and that's the power we bring to the table. Everybody just getting better, so you don't want to get left behind, so you got to work even harder.
I mean, you're a veteran guy now. Where's the leadership in that room? Is it you? Is it Adam? What is it?
I think the overall leader has to be Adam. Then it's me. Just trying to lead these guys and show them what it means to be the starter, and don't take it for granted.
You been pleased with your personal progress over spring practice?
Yes, sir. I've been pleased with it. Of course, I'm not all the way where I want to be, but I took steps in the right direction this spring.
How hard did you work on your conditioning before you got here this spring?
This spring, I did winter workouts. A little extra on the side, but spring football is kind of different. I do football stuff, and when I come and work out, be on the treadmill afterwards. Just trying to get in better shape.
Are you hoping to be a little bit more involved in the passing game this fall?
Oh, yes, sir, definitely. Trying to get involved with the passing game more, catch a little bit more passes, and take it from.
All right, Clemson running back Travion Feaster. Got to keep him separated from Travis Etienne. Can't even do it when you're in person with him.
I'm still trying to wonder where we haven't seen more combinations of him, because he was such a great receiver in high school, of having Travion Feaster in the slot. And then, you have him in the slot once the defense sees the coverage, then shift him into the backfield. Just give defensive coordinators fits on if Etienne going in the slot or is Feaster going in. Who's going to do what where? And I think that'll open up more passing lanes and maybe open up more of the intermediate routes.
Well, here's Tony Elliott's phone number. Give him a call. Say, hey, here's an idea for you. You thought about this?
I would think he has.
You think he'll take your phone call?
He probably wouldn't, but I would think he has thought about that, because Feaster is just too valuable not to have him on the field somewhere with Etienne at the same time.
All right, let's start with recruiting. We'll have to carry it over to the next hour. We got so much of it. Let's begin with some basketball. An update on Jalik Felton, the Mullen native, graduate of Gray Academy in Columbia, living in Charlotte, working out with his grandfather, Raymond Felton Sr., weighing his options with his family. Personal note here, Raymond Felton Sr. kept me on the bench for 2 years at dear old Latta High. Tremendous player in his own right. Had I known that that he would have a son, had I known that Raymond Sr. would have a son who would become a college All-American and a good player in the NBA and make several $1 million, I would have been an even closer friend of him back in the day. But I wasn't smart enough to see that back in high school. Could you project any of your high school buddies
no.
birthing a child who would become an NBA millionaire?
No.
Yeah, I would have been much nicer to Raymond Sr. and become a much closer friend had I known that back in the day. But anyway, on to the here and now. dealing with Jalik Felton and talking with his coach from Gray Collegiate Academy, Dion Bethay, who talked to Felton's mother yesterday, and she said that to him, and he told me, Frank Martin, USC, remains a major player. He said that Frank and them really want him at USC. He said, I'm guessing once everything gets worked out, whenever that may be, we don't know. Hopefully we can get some movement or something going on, but right now it's been empty as far as activity, Bethay said. I asked him if that means USC is the most likely destination, and he said, quote, I wouldn't say that. They are in a pretty good situation. Jalik does have a relationship with Coach Martin, too. I haven't heard too much about Clemson, but maybe Clemson is gaining a little ground. I'm not sure, end of quote. Clemson's Steve Smith did reach out to them once Felton departed North Carolina. Georgetown continues to be in touch, but they said St. John's coach Chris Mullen recently got in touch. No timetable for a decision, though he wants to enroll in the summer. We'll be right back.